my glasses. I hope I'll be able to see questions. Okay. We'll just wait for people to get on.
Cool.
Oh, hello, everyone. We're going to wait for another minute for people to just start showing up, and then we'll get started with everything. I hope everybody can hear me okay. Okay. Okay, we have some people on. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another live stream. I am very happy to have a special guest here with me. Please welcome Marc. Hello, Marc.
Hey, guys.
How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm like really nervous though, because I don't know why, but like live streams to me are always so hard to do.
You know what? Like I was like that as well when I started doing my Instagram live streams. But then kind of like once you get into it, the other day I spilled my tea all over the floor. I was like, hello, everyone. Everybody's saying hi. Where are you guys coming from? Comment. Let us know.
Yeah.
Are we Misters Worldwide? I don't know. That was a tongue twister. Wow. So Marc here is an amazing photographer based in LA. He specializes. Can I say that you specialize in male photography and self-portraits? Because
yeah, of course. Yeah.
I feel like you have such an impressive portfolio of self-portraits, and they're so creative that I think it is kind of like part of your work at this point. I will show you guys very quickly Marc's website, and in the meantime, so I'm going to be asking him a few questions, and then you guys can obviously pop your questions in the comments as well. We'll try and keep track of them. So we'll just start with like a very generic question, like how did you start? How old are you right now? Because you're pretty
I'm 21.
young, right?
Yeah, 21.
You're a baby. Okay. You're a baby. Oh. I feel so old. I'm like 28, and I'm like, I feel like.
Oh my God, no, you're not old at all.
Thank you. Okay, so when did you start photography? How did you start it? And what kind of photos did you take at the very beginning when you started?
Yeah, so I first started probably when I graduated high school. I had a friend who, like, we lived in this boring town, I remember, and the only exciting thing that we had to look forward to was going on these like photo adventures. So basically, she would bring like her DSLR camera with her, and I would just like follow her around and like a lost puppy. Like I wasn't, taking any photos at that point. But I remember one day she had asked me, she was like, do you want to try taking some photos? So she gave me her camera, and I was like taking photos of like trees and just grass and flowers. And then from there, I just like instantly fell in love with it. And yeah, I just sort of just started. And I think the first thing that I was first interested in photographing was nature, because I was like really scared to work with people because I wasn't good at posing people or like directing them. And I was like so much of an introvert back in high school. So I had like so much anxiety with just like working with a real human being. So the great thing about nature is that it just kind of stands there silently and it's just photogenic and beautiful. So that's why I navigated towards that. But then I had a friend who at the time, she was like, I remember she was trying to get into like this K-pop group, and she like needed some headshots for her, like her audition tape or something. And after I like did those headshots for her, I then fell in love with taking pictures of people. So it just sort of happened. And then from there, I just sort of kept working on it. And now I'm here living in Hollywood, California.
Yeah,
crazy
that's amazing.
journey.
And it's actually very interesting because what you're saying about nature and stuff. When I look at your work, you can see, I'm just showing it here. You can see how you incorporate nature into your shots still, even in photos like this or some of your newer work as well. You always have quite a lot of surroundings in your shots, which I find really nice because there's some photographers that go for the very shallow depth of field. Oh, it's not loading. Oh, it is. Okay, perfect. And and it's kind of nice that you're able to incorporate it because from my perspective, when I started photography, I started with like blurry backgrounds and everything was it was a very specific style, kind of and I was striving to have style like yours, but it took me so many years to develop that and to learn how to work with like less shallow depth of field and so on, and actually liking the photos. Because I found out at the time when I took the photos, I actually hated them afterwards. I was like, no, it doesn't work. It's just like, give me my 1.2 or my 1.4. I don't want this background stuff, you know.
I remember when I was like first starting, I saw this YouTuber who she used like a 50, I think it was like the Canon 50 1.2, and every photo that she took with it was like at 1.2, and I just like absolutely loved it. So I went and bought my own, but then I realized I was like, I don't think I enjoy shooting at f1.2 as much as I do shooting at like f5 and above, or like f8. So yeah, I feel like it's a style. I mean, I still sometimes will shoot at like f1.4 on my like Sigma 85, but for majority of my shoots, I use the 24 to 70, and it stops to f2.8. So can't go any lower than that.
Yeah, no, I'm the same. I'm like a 2.8 girl. I literally don't own. I actually own like 100mm 2.8 as well, but I don't own any other lenses. We got some international crowd. We have people from Ghana, Poland, Cape
hey Irene.
India. Oh, is Irene there? I'm still getting there. Australia, Russia, Poland, Birmingham. They love you, Mark, in Birmingham.
Oh, thanks,
Russia,
guys.
Germany, Ghana, South Africa. Ooh, some nice. Oh, hey Irene. she's joined to fight on another live cast. What? Okay, never mind. Anyway, okay, so I remember when because we got to meet when we were in LA, when I was in LA, thanks to Irene. Actually, Irene met us up. We did a shoot together, and I remember when we met up and we were chatting, you said that, you know, when you started taking photos, you were taking photos mostly of girls, but then you decided to kind of slowly transition into shooting males. Can you talk more about that? Like, why did you decide on that? Was there any like reasons behind it, and how long did it take you to like change and so on?
Yeah, so I originally started off by strictly shooting female models because at the time, just being like a gay kid in Boston, like I had a lot of girlfriends, and like we loved fashion, and we just like loved just hanging out at the park and stuff. So since a lot of my friend circle was women, I feel like that's why I navigated more towards them, because I felt more comfortable being around women, especially in conversations. So that's why I started with women. But then I had tried to like search on YouTube for videos about male models, and I couldn't really find any. When it came to male models, I feel like there weren't a lot of photographers at the time doing that. So I thought to myself, I was like, you know what, why don't I try? And maybe that could be like my niche on YouTube. Because I mean, there were already so many amazing photographers like yourself and Irene and so many other people who were already taking like stunning photos of these female models. And I just felt like there was nothing I could offer more than what you guys were already doing. So I thought, well, maybe I should just do something completely out of left field and go down working with guys. So I did, and at first it was a little weird because I just wasn't used to it. I guess I feel like I just didn't assume I didn't know how to interact with the male model when I was the photographer. Like I could talk to guys obviously, but like when you're a photographer and you have that relationship with them, it's like a different type of conversation you have to have, and you just have to like make them very vulnerable in front of your lens, which is very hard to do for guys because they like rock solid and show no emotion. But I don't know, that almost became a challenge for me, and I think I enjoyed that. I think I enjoyed the challenge of trying to open up guys a little bit more, and for them to be comfortable with just expressing themselves on camera and not feeling like they have to be one type of standard when it comes to modeling. Because I feel like there's those typical traditional photos where you have to be in underwear and they have to like show their abs and everything, right? And the whole Calvin Klein, that whole situation. But I wanted to offer like a different route for male photography. Like I wanted to give it a different approach. So my approach was not so much about them being a mannequin, but more about them playing a character, or like being just being themselves and just being open and honest, I guess. So Yeah, it was fun. You know, and to this day, I still work with female models. Actually, I just don't really post about it often. But yeah, I work with both. I love working with both. But I think right now, if I had to choose, I would probably choose male models, just because I feel like that's sort of what I've just been known for on YouTube. So that's just kind of what I'm going to stick with for now.
But I think it's great because I find like you really do offer something different because, as you said, it's a very, I feel like it's a very boring market for like what it is, and I think you're really twisting it up and like mixing it up and making it a bit more exciting, because I agree a lot of the photos that you say are just like or that you see on like billboards and stuff are just like the traditional sorry, the traditionally masculine guy standing in his underwear or just like in a suit holding his tie, or like
Mhm.
just boring ideas that have been done thousands and thousands of times, and you don't really see a lot of creative male model photo shoots. From my perspective, when I was working, especially in Ireland or even in Bali, it's like you don't really get the guy as the main character. You usually get them as this accessory to the female model
Mhm.
because they're not usually selling. It's like, because there's so many more female clothing brands that take photos rather than the male ones. So I think what you're doing is really great because you're showing a completely different perspective on it. You
Mhm.
show that you can make it creative if you want to, that you don't just have to have a, that kind of London style where there's like a sad, grumpy guy standing in like loose tracksuits in front of the
Yeah.
sad building. It's like there is more to it. You can be
Mhm.
creative. You can create other things, and I think that's
Yeah.
great. So okay, so and then when did you start shooting your self portraits? Then was it from the beginning, or did you just start playing with it eventually? And how did it come to life?
Yeah, so the self portraits, those actually, I was taking those before I even had a YouTube channel. So it was weird the way I started with self portraits. I didn't like the way I looked on camera, as many of us
Mhm.
do. We always have this like ugh, reaction when we see ourselves. So for me, I had this like weird obsession with just seeing photos of myself on like a professional camera, because I was like, is this what I really look like to other people? Like I thought I looked like,
Mhm.
something completely different. So I always had an interest in taking self-portraits, but at first it wasn't for like a good reason. It was more for feeding this like negative part of my mind. But as I grew, I realized that like I could also be in front of the camera, but it would just be like a different type of photography. It wouldn't be so much like a commercial side. It would be more of just like a creative, outlet for me to just experiment and do whatever I want.
Mhm.
And it also really helped me with learning how to edit too, because when you're working at the beginning as a photographer, there's probably not that many models that you're going to be able to work with, just because nobody,
Yeah.
you don't really have a portfolio. Nobody like sees your work at first. So it's hard to get that first, you know, couple of models to really build up
Mhm.
your portfolio. So it was hard for me to just edit people in images. So I took photos of myself so I could like learn how to skin retouch. And I mean, oh my God, I was so awful at skin retouching at the beginning. I remember I was so
All of
bad.
us are. All of us
Yeah.
are.
But then
Seriously.
you know what? I think I saw you post something about this guy. His name's Pratik or Pratik.
Pratik, yeah. So he's a retoucher. I did a live stream with him. He's actually going to be on YouTube if you guys are interested. He's going to be back on YouTube with me, I think next Friday, if I remember well. So
Nice. Yeah. Well,
I'm
I
just going
actually I
well,
took
sorry, while you're talking, I'm just going to show some of your self portraits.
oh, of
So
course.
just
I
yeah.
actually I was taking like an editing course from him like online, because he has like
Oh,
a
okay.
really good
Is
editing
that
style when it comes to.
the retouching series? Is that what you were
Yes.
doing?
Yeah, I think that
Mhm.
was it.
Mhm.
So yeah, at first the self portraits kind of began in a bad way, but it slowly transformed into something positive. And right now, like during this whole LA quarantine, it's hard to work with anybody. Like I haven't been able to work with any models for the past 2 months.
Mhm.
So what I was left with was just photographing myself. And it was really nice to kind of reconnect with that self-portrait side of me, because I feel like I hid it for a while when I moved here to LA. Because in LA, it's very, very commercial. It's very, you have to work with, the top models, and you have to work with all of these crazy people, because that's just kind of how you get your name in the door.
Yeah.
And it really like it took up a lot of my time, where I wasn't able to focus on self portraits as much as I did when I was living in Boston. So, now I'm in this period where I have been able to do more self-portraits, and it's been really fun to just get back to that and, just experiment and explore with different types of styles and just editing and all that stuff. So, yeah.
And what I love about your self portraits, as you guys are seeing here on the screen, it's like your ideas are very creative. And, I find a lot of the time if people are taking self portraits, and like, let's say, especially, well, not people, women in particular, when they, let's say, have a really beautiful face, that's what usually it concentrates on. Not that I'm not saying you don't have a beautiful face. I just mean, like, with girls, it's usually like the main, a lot of self portraits that I see, the main focus is the person, the face, the head and shoulders. But for you, you're taking a completely different, more creative approach to it, which I really love, because it's not about you necessarily. You're just a part of the concept, which I find really
right. And I think
invigorating is not the word.
Thank you. I think that it helps me change the way that I view myself just as a person, right? Because when I was like first starting out, I didn't have like any self-confidence like at all. But now whenever I'm able to see myself in these photos, sometimes I can't even believe that it's me, because I'm like, wow, like that's really cool that I was able to be a part of something that was so just cool and creative. But I think that's why I just continue to take self-portraits, is because it just makes me feel better about myself in a way. Because I feel like I can actually like use myself as a way to tell a story or to just be creative, which is just always fun to do.
And also, we had this conversation with Irene. She was just saying that when she takes her self-portraits, it's also a really good way for her to just experiment and try something new without the pressure of being with a model. Because obviously when you're with a model, you have to, deliver certain things, and like, they're on a timeline, and you don't want to be sitting there, in the studio playing like 7 hours with like a certain light setup. But when you're there by yourself, you can literally waste the whole day. And it's not really a waste, because you're doing something creative. So it's so much easier for your progress as well, to be kind of able to do that, and then to retouch on yourself. And then even if the photos don't work out, you can always just scrap it, and there is no love lost. There is no models waiting for the images and so on, which I think is a plus as well.
Yeah, that's a very good point.
Yeah. So in terms of taking photos, right? I see that you take quite a number of different, light setups, and you shoot indoors and outdoors, and you shoot some in nature. So what would your preferred setups be? Would it be natural light? Would it be indoors, outdoors?
Yeah, for self-portraits, or for just like photography in general, like
for both.
Okay, so for I think whenever I work with like male models, my preferred choice would be natural light, just because I'm not that great when it comes to shooting studio, because I don't have much practice with it. But I think that I think there will be a point where I will be shooting more studio than natural light photography, just because I think whenever you can learn how to use lighting, it'll just give you more like options as far as creating, and you don't have to rely on like the weather being nice, or like is a certain time of day you have to shoot at. You can shoot that all in your studio, and you have the control to create a lot better work. Like there's this one photographer, I don't know if you know who she is, but her name is Lindsay Alder.
Yeah.
And like her studio stuff is just like I can't even comprehend how she does all that stuff. It's just amazing how she's able to use those lighting setups to create the images that she does. So that's definitely somewhere I would like to see myself in a couple of years, is being able to shoot work like hers, but for male models instead of female models. So
I feel like it's also great, because I feel like once you have a really good understanding of natural light, it's much easier to master studio light as well. Because I find like that's the main issue that I had when I was starting photography, is when I was getting into the studio, I didn't really understand how light travels, how it hits surfaces, or like not surfaces, more like models. So whenever I did light setups, it was all very kind of, blind. I didn't really know what I was doing. But now I find anytime I go into the studio, because I understand natural light so much more, it's so much easier to get the setups somehow how I want them to look, instead of just, just blindly trying to like press different buttons and being like, what am I doing?
Right.
At least that's my experience of it. At least,
and what's funny too is like what makes learning Flash even harder is whenever like I post a YouTube video of me using Flash, like there's always those people in the comment sections who just like bash me for not using it correctly. And I'm like, I'm not an expert. I'm not claiming to be like, I know I'm probably doing it wrong. So just go easy on me.
I mean, listen, whenever I post any video, there's always somebody telling me that I do something wrong. So it's just, I think it's just like eventually when you post so many videos and people continuously tell you that you're doing something wrong, eventually you just not stop caring, but you just take it with a grain of salt and you're like, okay, but like I might not be doing it exactly right, but I'm still getting the result I want. So
Right. Yeah, exactly.
something's
Actually,
gonna
I have
give.
a question for you before we move on.
Yeah, sure.
So you mainly shoot with female models, right?
Yeah.
So do you think that if you were to shoot with a male model in the same style that you do, would your process like change at all? Like how would your process change if you worked with a male model?
I feel like it would be maybe not tricky. I feel like, my work, especially nowadays, the work that I've been doing recently, is very sexy. So, the swimmer that I do is very like sensual, and I don't know if I would feel fully comfortable doing the same kind of shoots with male models because I feel like I might end up just making it look a bit pornish, which I don't necessarily want. Like imagine, I just feel like in a way, if I did that, it would just feed into that male stereotype that I don't necessarily like adore. It's just like those. It's just like those shots have been done so many times. If it was like a male, like oiled up guy with like a six pack, like standing on a rock somewhere with like tiny little like butt smugglers or whatever they're called. So it's just like maybe that wouldn't be ideal. So maybe I would definitely try and see if there's any other like posing or any other way to kind of make it look maybe a bit more interesting and tell a bit more of a story rather than just being the typical like, oh, it's just me flexing at the beach, because
Right.
so I think, I've had a few situations where I was the one to photo shoot with the guys. So for example, when I was in London, I did a few male photo shoots, and it was very interesting because I definitely have learned more about posing guys, which is very helpful. And even the shoot that we did together in LA was fun because it was a bit different because you pretty much like pre-styled it for us. So it was definitely easier to just show up there and be like, okay, I'm going to take some photos. But then when I was in Bali, I actually had a photo shoot kind of inspired by your work. And my stylist friend, she pulled those like really amazing suits. I think you've seen the photos because I remember I was the one where he was falling into the pool and I was like
Yeah.
referencing your image.
Yeah.
So yeah, so kind of it was very exciting to have the guy dressed in like a really really quirky suit, and he was a very quirky character as well because he was very animated and he was like he had like loads of different facial expressions, and I was like, wow, there's so much to do. And in a way it was very interesting because I kind of feel like when that happened, I took myself out of the thinking that I need to shoot a certain way, and I just did whatever felt cool for me or felt right. So I actually did the photo shoot quite different than I would usually do, just because I was just I guess I didn't have those things in my head blocking me from thinking like, oh, maybe I shouldn't be doing it this way. I usually do it that way because I usually don't do it. So I was kind of free to just do whatever the hell I wanted. And that was really nice. So I would definitely love to try and do like maybe like a swimwear thing with a guy because I think it will be kind of interesting to see what comes out of it as well.
Yeah.
But I don't know how it would work out and if I would be successful and like, getting a different kind of image instead of him just standing there like flexing muscles. So
yeah, but there definitely are times where they need those type of photos. So those are always those are always good to have for their portfolio. And
yeah, I think in general, I think it's like a big industry for the guys, and like unless you're in a place like maybe London or something where you have like loads of e-com, unfortunately, like jobs for male models are still quite limited, in comparison to what it is for women. Like when you look at women, there's so many like brands and so many places that you can shoot, but with guys, it's usually like sports brands or like like underwear or so it's just it's definitely improving though. I think it's definitely improving.
Yeah.
I just remember back in the day when I was working for magazines, there was like literally zero magazines that would do male shoots. It was just nothing. There was like
Yeah.
one magazine in the whole country that would actually do males, and it was like it was coming out like once a year or something.
Hmm.
So that's where
Yeah.
that's where the problem starts.
Yeah.
Okay, so also for your self portraits, right? Coming back to
Mhm.
your self portraits, where do you usually get your inspiration for your self portraits? Do you like look at Pinterest, Instagram? Do you like movies? Where do they come from?
Yeah, usually a lot of them do come from Pinterest. That's one of my go-to spots actually for just putting together mood boards and uh, just coming up with different ideas. But a
Mhm.
lot of my other ideas also come from actually some of my dreams that I have.
Okay.
I actually have, I don't know if I have it near me, but I have like this notebook that I like write down all of my dreams in whenever I feel like it's an important one.
Yeah.
And then later, what I'll do is I'll try and construct it into a photo concept. So
Okay.
some of my inspiration comes from that, or it'll just come from nature. Um, Movies for sure. Like I love like futuristic sci-fi movies, and I also love the old traditional Hollywood type movies.
Hmm.
So they can come from, you know, any type of situation in life. Like
Yeah,
there's just so much.
because I remember that's what you were saying when we were doing our shoot in LA. That you a lot of the photo shoot ideas, especially for the male models, you kind of get them from old Hollywood movies, right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, those are because I don't know why, but I just love like the old Western type of characters
Mm.
in movies. Like they're just so interesting to me. I love this. I
Yeah.
love how they're like this outcast, rugged, sort of like mysterious type of guy. I don't know. I find that very interesting.
Yeah, it's very interesting as well because I started watching the Hollywood series on Netflix, and it's
Mhm.
such a good series. Just having the view into like Hollywood and like the way they style the characters, it's
Mhm.
actually insane. And it's just like it actually does remind me a lot of your work as well. So I was like watching it for
Thank
the
you.
last few days. I watch like an episode a night because I just like savor it, and
Mhm.
it's such a cool series. And it's just I agree like the characters that they have and the styling that they have in it are so much fun and like so much fun to watch and just the styling is so on point as well.
Yeah.
So Irene asked, Mark, would you look for in a male model?
Oh, that's a good question. I think I look for like a bit of mystery. I think I like mystery for sure. Let's see what else. That's a good question. I've never had anyone ask me that before. Um,
You're like blindsided.
yeah,
Irene blindsided
I'm
you.
like, let me think about that. But I really think mystery. I love that idea of like the guy that we all worked with on that video,
Yes.
Connor. Like, I really do feel like he has this like mysterious feel.
Mhm.
He can either be like really nice or he could be like a complete jerk. Like it could go either way, and
Yeah.
I love that because it's like this like weird balance between the
I
two.
will show you guys the photos that we took when we were in LA together. There should be somewhere towards the top, right?
Yeah, and then also I like to see if if they have just like a good talkative energy. I like when I work with models who can like hold a conversation. And it's I don't know if I should talk about this. It might be a little controversial, but when it comes to working with models in LA, you can often find people who have a very big ego because they have a very big
Yeah.
following on Instagram. So I actually tend to find people who don't have a big following because I know that they're going to just be like genuine. And they're just going to have like, we're all going to have fun. It's not like, oh, I'm shooting with this person because he has this many followers. It's more just like,
Yeah.
let's just work together and create like cool images.
I feel like also would you look for someone who, because for example, Connor, the guy that I just showed you guys, that we shot with, he was an aspiring actor, right? So he was able to get into the character much easier. Would that be something that you'd be looking for as well? Just somebody who can act, because it is a role in a way where
Yeah.
they have to imagine that they are some sort of a character and they just have to portray it.
Yeah, I love people who are actors too. If you're an actor, a dancer, any sort of
Yeah.
performer, I probably want to work with you like immediately because
I feel like in general it's like a good energy, and it's just those kind of people are usually way more open in front of the camera, and they are kind of more willing to be a bit more out there in terms of this stuff that they portray. So it's definitely
right. And it can be tricky too. One thing that a lot of people probably don't know about with guys is that whenever you reach out to them, like I've reached out to a lot of male models and they've either said no or they just haven't responded. Because a lot of male models, they don't like my style because they feel like it is too like feminine or it's too loose. You know, they want something like tough and strong, you know, like showing their abs, or they want that studio shoot where they can be shirtless. So that's a
They're like,
issue.
oh yeah.
Yeah, that's the issue I struggle with too. So for people out there who think that it's like me just reaching out to anybody and I can just work with anybody, absolutely not. Like, you know,
But you know
85%
what?
of the people that I reach out to probably say no.
I feel like it's the same for everyone, you know. It's just like when a lot of the time, if I reach to models when I want to do fashion shoots, I get the same thing because I'm mainly considered a swimwear photographer. Like a lot of girls who would be more edgy or more fashion, they don't want to work with me because my style is commercial.
Right.
And it's the same, you know. Like I know Irene has the same issues sometimes as well because her style is pretty dreamy. So girls who are more fashion or more swimwear probably might not necessarily. So it's like, you know, everybody is kind of, I guess, classed in some sort of a genre that they are mainly in. And, you know, sometimes when you do reach out to people, it's kind of difficult, especially, you know, if you are just starting out. I mean, your portfolio is great, so I can't imagine how would anybody say no. But I mean, it's always the case. You always just have to kind of, but I think, you know, that's the thing. It's just like there's nothing wrong with you messaging all those people and finding out if they're interested or not. And the worst that can happen is they can just ignore you and say no, but they might say yes, you know, you never know. And sometimes the
Right.
people that you expect to say yes the least will be the ones that actually say it. So
Yeah, like I remember there's this one guy that I reached out to when I made my first trip to New York, and I was like really surprised that he even responded. So he but he really did help in like the beginning stages of being a photographer that specializes in male models, because he was such a big male model at the time. Like he was at the top of his, like, I guess, tier or his agency. Like he was one of the top faces. So reaching out to him was just kind of like, I didn't know if he was going to respond or not. So that was really cool. Yeah, you never know. Like sometimes it'll work out, you know. So you just got to try.
So Irene asked another good question. Would you do a shoot with a plus size male model? I don't think I've ever seen one done on YouTube.
Yeah, I would. I've actually been trying to find those like type of models, but I haven't been able to because I don't know. I just haven't been able to find any. But I would definitely love to work with like a plus size male model. My cousin's actually, I would consider him like a plus size model. So
Yeah.
maybe I'll just ask my cousin.
That's the thing. I think it's like it's pretty difficult because I feel like with female models, you know, plus size has like recently become like a bigger niche where there's so many more girls coming up, and
Right.
I feel like it's only in like maybe the last 2 or 3 years because I have a few friends who are plus size models, and just the way the industry has developed in the last few years, and I feel like for guys, because guys are a smaller market in general, like plus size is even like a smaller section of that market. So,
Right.
but um, so Justin said, I find working with actors instead of models also helps. Yeah, so we just mentioned that.
Oh yeah.
Okay, I'll continue with
Actually, I know Justin. So hey,
Oh,
Justin.
there we go. Okay, so another question is, obviously you're a photographer in LA, and LA is a pretty competitive market and it's pretty
Right.
saturated with creatives. So, and then also you are shooting something that is considered niche. So how do you go about it? Is it really difficult to find jobs? Is it really difficult to put your name out there, or is it easier because it is a niche thing and because, you know, it is a thing that people need?
I think it can be both. Sometimes, like either I can find, you know, a good amount of success working with a certain like team or like a certain group of people, just because there isn't as much competition. But then it can also be difficult because usually there's like these sort of like, at least here in LA, like there can be these cliques that have just been used to like running the whole industry for the past like 10 years. And it's hard to like break into that or to, you know, I guess put yourself with them because sometimes they don't want to have new people. So you know, it can be both. Sometimes it's a plus, sometimes it's a minus to be in such a small niche, because it's a plus because, you know, no one else is, not that many people are doing it, but it's a negative because the people that are, it's such a tight community that it's hard to become a part of that because they're very like selective.
That's what I noticed. You know, you look at the guys.
I'm gonna charge my laptop really quick. Sorry, my laptop's
Yeah, no, it's fine. It's fine. Go for it. Run.
Yeah.
I almost forgot to charge mine, but I was like very last minute. I was like, nope. See, it's good. It's a good thing that didn't happen to me because I'm sitting in my in my kitty pajamas. Today has been a long day, so business on the top, party on the bottom. Who else is sitting in the pajamas right now? Probably all of you. Don't lie. I won't trust you if you say you don't. I haven't worn jeans in like a month and a half. I've been just living in my like pajamas slash my workout gears, and that's it. There's nothing else.
Okay, I'm back. Sorry about that.
Yeah, no worries. So I was just saying that I see a few photographers. One of them, I think his name is Bryant. Is it Bryant?
Uh,
He's one of the
oh,
photographers.
is he like the film photographer who shoots a lot of
I
film?
think so. And there's like Clinch, and there's a few other people. But I
Does
noticed
he
that
shoot with
most
like a
of the
bunch of
guys-
famous like TikTokers and?
That's what I'm saying. It's just you see those guys in LA. There's a bunch of young male photographers in LA, and they all shoot with those huge Instagram people and those huge like TikTok people. And I'm like, how do you just like do you just hang out with those people? Do you just like grow up with them? Like, well, how does it happen? It's just like it's like
Yeah.
that Team 10 kind of vibe, and it's just so interesting. It's just so like mind blowing to me. We got a thing saying after quarantine I can pose. I'm now plus size. You found yourself a plus size.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, hit me up on Instagram.
Everyone is getting plus size after this quarantine. So Sir Gray asked, what is your favorite lens and why?
Actually, I have my equipment with me because I knew somebody would ask me about my equipment.
There you go.
So these are the only two lenses that I own. I only own a Sigma 85 1.4, and then I own the Canon 24 to 70. These are the only two lenses I own at this time, and I'm very happy with them. But I find myself using this lens way more. So I'll have to say that my favorite lens is the 24 to 70 by Canon, the 2.8 version. So yeah, that's definitely like my go-to lens. But there are times where I do tend to like favorite this one over the other one. So I guess it just depends on like the shoot and like the lighting situation, and just like the overall like goal of the photos. So
it's very interesting because we're pretty much working on the same equipment. I mean, I have the 24 to 70 as well. And then I have a 100 mil 2.8 instead of the 85, but that's literally the only two lenses that I use as well. I don't have anything else. Okay, Candy is in PJs as well, so hello. So nice. Kevin commented, I'm a model myself and I've been craving the more creative storytelling type shoots as of late. I want to know how to tap into that vulnerability and be more comfortable with showing that side of me.
Yeah, I think you have to find the right photographer, because I think there are some photographers that I have worked with who don't have that intention. They don't have the intention of like trying to do something a little bit different or a little bit more creative. They mainly have the intention of just doing what the agency wants. And usually what the agency wants is more of just like a simple white backdrop and, just like a headshot or with minimal editing, minimal styling. So they want it very basic. So if you do want to try and like be more vulnerable in front of the camera, try and reach out to photographers who are doing that. And you can tell just by looking at their portfolio or their Instagram, because there are really cool photographers out there who are not well known, but they should be because their work is so good. So just look for photographers. I'm sure there's somebody in your area who would love to try and do something a little bit more creative than the typical agency type of shoots.
Yeah, I agree. I think if you want to find someone like that, or if you want to bring out the side of you, you have to have the right photographer to do it.
Right. Because sometimes too, like if you try to be open and vulnerable and the photographer is just like not vibing with it, they're gonna, it's just gonna be very awkward. So
that's the thing. And then you'll be like, oh shit, am I doing something wrong? Am I
right?
Like
and then you like second guess yourself, but it's not you. So it's just like it just wasn't a right fit.
Absolutely. Well, we have Ricky sitting in his pajamas as well. We have Mateusz sitting in his pajamas. We have a crowd of pajama people.
Nice.
Michael asks, could I do a tutorial on photo editing? I do have a few tutorials on photo editing. I will be doing more sometime soon when I finally feel like it. So stay tuned. Irene asked, do you guys have TikTok? What do you guys think of it for photographers?
So
I set up TikTok. And I posted like 2 videos and I was like, you know what? I'm too fucking old for this. I'm 28. I'm just like, I'm going to retire now.
Yeah, I have a TikTok, but I don't use it for photography. I just post like stupid dancing videos there. But I think I should use it more for like photography stuff, because there's this one guy on there. I don't know his name. I think it's like Jordix or Jordox or something. And he has over like 5 million followers on TikTok, and it's
Wow.
basically him just doing these like creative, sort of like viral photo creative ideas, I guess. And
Mm.
then he made a YouTube channel, and then in like less than a couple of weeks, he was already at like 500,000 subscribers. So maybe I should start doing more stuff over there on TikTok.
You know what, you should, because if that's what's going like viral, I mean, so many of your especially self-portrait ideas are so good that it looks really good. By the way, sorry, I'm just like filling up my cup, but I have my water bottle that is like literally
Oh no, don't worry. I'm gonna fill mine up
it's
too.
a tank. It's like I just don't want to be like sipping from it, so I'm just like filling up my cup because it's a bit embarrassing. It's a great way to stay hydrated though, because you remember that you have to drink a certain amount. I usually like look at it in the evening and it's like 3/4 full. I'm like, shit. And then you just have to drink. Okay. So Paul Robinson asks, Mark, is your client base mostly individuals or agencies? Do you have any tips to make a business out of male portraits, especially as the market is much smaller than for women?
Yeah. So whenever I first moved here to LA, I immediately reached out to a bunch of agencies, and the agency that reached back out to me, actually, I don't think I should name them, but they were a pretty good agency. And
Yeah.
I remember like they had me come in, meet with one of the people who worked there with the agency, and then he had sent me like this contract to sign. Basically, it's just like a model release form. So, that way the legal side is taken care of with all that stuff. And then I got a lot of more like income coming from that one agency. So they had like sent me some of their new faces and people that they were like just signing on. They had sent me their people to do shoots with, and they would pay me like a certain amount to do that. It wasn't a lot, like to be completely honest, it wasn't that much money, but it was definitely like enough to keep doing what I was doing. And then once I started doing that, I think once the models were posting the photos from our shoot, their other friends who were models had then reached out to me separately on their own from a different agency. And then I started getting more income from other models wanting to hire me to take their photos. So it was like a weird mix of both. But I feel like mainly my clients just come from being, my clients come from word of mouth, because a lot of people, like when we shoot together, they enjoyed working with me. So like that's the one advice I would give people, is just make sure that you are somebody who's able to be, to be comfortable working with anybody, because the nicer you are, like if you're nice to people on set, or like if you're nice to the people that you're working with, you're more likely to get clients and just your name spread, because people want to work with good people. So even if you're like super talented, but you have like a really bad attitude, nobody's going to want to hire you. So
That's the thing. And I think it's the same with models. I find a lot of really good models that are really, really amazing, and they have huge following even, and all the stuff. They're usually really, really nice and humble and like easy to work with. And that's why they are where they are. And a lot of the girls that tend to be like, okay, they're beautiful and they might have a following, but they're really difficult. I just remember I had this one model once, and I absolutely loved the photos. They were like one of my favorite photos that I ever taken. But on the day, it was in Bali, and she was there with her friends, and just the way she was treating her friends, oh my God, she was such a horrible person. And I was like, I was leaving there and I was feeling so awful. I was like, because I got the shots, I knew like I was happy out and all this stuff, but I'm like, just the way she was behaving on the set, I was like, if something goes missing in that house, I'm going to be blamed for it. I can guarantee you, because that's the vibe she gave off. And like, I would never want to shoot with her again after this. I'm like, the photos are nice, everything is great, but I never want to see you again because you're difficult. Like at best.
yeah. If you're difficult
Good
to
when
work
it's
with,
good. Like it's good, but when it's good, but it's like if something went wrong, if like I don't know, the photos didn't turn out how they wanted it, they would like break you down. They would like crush you like a bug, and you're like, nope. I definitely agree. You have to be very nice. But also one other thing that I was thinking, because as I said, I did take a few photos in London of male models when I was there, and it was pretty interesting because I was chatting to my friend who is a model in London. She's a female model, but she was just saying that she knows photographers in London that really coin it, because they take photos, like really good creative photos of male models, or not necessarily even creative, but just like very good quality male photos, because like a lot of the guys or a lot of people that are in London, for example, specialize in female models, as you mentioned, and because the male model is such a like a smaller niche, when you become good at it, the word spreads really fast and everybody wants to work with you. And even when I did like 1 or 2 shoots with male models, I got like 5, 6, 7 requests afterwards from guys being like, "Hey, shoot with me." And I literally just did 2 random shoots in the park that weren't even that exciting. So
Yeah.
so the good thing is it definitely like the word definitely does spread a bit faster, which is great.
Yeah.
So your friend said, Justin said, click tightly knit groups is very prominent in LA, in my opinion. Yeah. I'm not even from there and I know that. It's just
Yeah, that's just kind of how it goes.
Okay, so
I had a question for you too, actually.
Yeah, sure. Go for it. I'm just looking at other people's questions.
So, as YouTubers, we get a lot of comments, and some of them are nice, and some of them are not so nice. So how do you deal with like negative comments on your channel?
It depends. Like, what kind of negative are we talking? Are we talking stuff that's somehow constructive? Or are we talking stuff that is just pure on me?
Not like, constructive criticism, I don't consider negative. When I say negative, I mean people who are just like flat out like raw and just like mean, and they just like want to tear you down.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like it depends. Like I had my fair share. As I said, there probably isn't a video where somebody doesn't tell me that I'm just a stupid girl and I'm doing something wrong. It's just like a recurring thing where I always have like a middle-aged photographer always telling me that I'm doing something wrong or using an equipment wrong or just, like not using my lens correctly, not using this correctly. That it's just a recurring theme.
Yeah.
Where but then the annoying thing is you go into that person's, like, if for example they have a YouTube account that's connected, you go into their portfolio and you're like, I have questions. Questionable. What's happening here? So it's just like sometimes I do get triggered by stuff like that, obviously, because I'm human like everybody else, and if somebody's like saying nasty shit about you, you will feel things. But at the same time, I feel like at this point I'm kind of like, I think I've put a very strong like word filter on my comments, so there's a lot of words that are blocked, because there's, for example, a lot of words from people like commenting on my tattoos, saying how I'm ruining my body and how I'll never find a husband, and it's just
Really?
like just the most dumb shit that is like nobody
Yeah.
cares about. I'm like, if it was a male photographer taking photos with tattoos, nobody would comment on his tattoos, they would comment on his photography, so it's just like there is this element of like when my male model posing video went live, I had a lot of comments from like a lot of countries that are very like male dominated in terms of culture, and like some of the comments were just pure on disgusting. But I just stopped reading them. I just literally, if there's a video like that I see that starts popping off and people are just being nasty, I just don't even go into the comments. I just avoid it. I just don't respond to the comments, which is annoying, because then if people have genuine questions, obviously you won't be able to respond. But at the same time, I just feel like it kind of protects my mental health more than anything.
Right.
But in general, I just try not to, I just try to kind of look at it from a perspective that if somebody comes from a place of so much hate, it's usually because they're very unhappy with themselves, where they are in life. And you just have to look at it with a grain of salt, that it's just usually this kind of comment is a reflection of them and not a reflection of you, really.
Right.
How about you?
Oh my God, I'm terrible at handling that. I'm
like, you asshole.
Like, I let it get to me so bad, and it's something that I'm still working on, because like your channel, you have a lot of subscribers, so I can only imagine how many comments you get. But my channel, like it isn't that big. It only started getting like some traction a couple of like months ago. So at first there weren't very many negative comments, but as my videos started getting more views, they definitely started coming in more often.
Yeah.
And they do get to me more than I would like to admit, but I'm just trying to figure out a way to not listen to it, I guess. But at the same time, like I do like to read the comments, because I like to reply to the people who really do enjoy the video. Absolutely. But then it's hard, because you can have like 20 positive and then there's that one negative, and then you just focus on that negative and you're like, why did that person like type that? Like, why does he think that?
I feel from my perspective as well, I don't know if it's going to be the case for you, but you are still very young and you are just beginning. And, I started photography 13 years ago. I feel like a dinosaur saying this. I feel like I'm grandmother sitting here like, I took photos pre-war, and this was like, oh.
Mhm.
But just doing it for so long, and I guess establishing my audience as well, just because I do know that I have a voice now in the industry, it gives you more, not ego, because it's not ego. I just know my worth, and I know where my weaknesses are. I know things that I need to improve, but at the same time, I am confident enough in my work that I know where I stand, and I know if I can distinguish wherever somebody's just being pure mean and just talking shit and actually being constructive. So, some people will be constructive, or like will try say something constructive, but not necessarily in a very constructive way. So sometimes you just have to approach them and be like, hey, listen, I get what you're saying, but maybe you should try and phrase it a bit differently, because the way you're saying it is just not very, very nice. And a lot of people actually respond to you and they're like, oh my God, I never meant to be this way. I just wanted to ask you a question, or like, I just wanted to comment. And it just never crossed my mind that you might be human and actually get hurt by it.
Right.
But I feel like now, especially because I'm getting older, and as I said, I think as I'm getting older, I just give less fucks about things in general in life. It's just like I've been through my fair share of things in life. I've been married at 20, divorced at 26. Like, I've done things in my life. So it's just like I feel like those kind of comments get to me less and less, because at least at the end of the day, I know that this is not real life. Those people don't know me in real life. They don't know my work. They're just people that are sitting in front of the computer commenting their opinions about my work. So at the end of the day, you can take it and you can leave it. But I think kind of as you grow older and as you get more confident in your work, it just kind of fades slightly, and it just makes it easier to deal with this kind of stuff.
Mhm.
And I think the more I think the problem with comments, like in general, like hate comments, is I think the more unsure you are about yourself and your work, the more they will affect you. Because anytime you're unsure about something and somebody tells you whatever they say to kind of affirm you and that feeling that you have in your head, you'll be like, oh shit, that must be right.
Right.
That must really suck. But when you're like, no, okay, like, maybe I didn't do this the best way, but I still know that I'm a decent photographer, then it's just kind of like it's not as bad to deal with. I guess that's maybe that's what it is. That's what it is for me, at least. I feel like
Yeah.
with my self-confidence, it kind of made it easier to deal with it. So Christine Martin asked, where do you see yourself in 5 years?
Oh,
Hopefully
that's
out of
always
the house, out of the quarantine.
yeah, honestly. Let's see. That's always the hardest question for me, because it's hard to visualize myself in 5 years. Um, a goal of mine actually is to create like a studio, like buy like like a big studio, and just call it like, okay, so I was gonna call it the Klaus house, but then there was this like TikTok group that made a hype house, and now I'm like, I don't want to like make, so I think I would just call it like the Klaus Studios. And basically my goal is to have people from wherever they come from, like be able to come to the studio and be able to shoot there for free, and then like provide them with a bunch of like lighting equipment and just everything that they could possibly need for studio photography, and just be creative with it. And maybe like host competitions on my YouTube channel, where like every once a month we have like 5 photographers come in and we just do like a friendly competition, or something like that. So yeah, I see myself trying to be more like involved with the community, and trying to be more like to try and give back more, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Because I feel like so many people have given me a lot, especially on YouTube. Like I've been given so much support. So I feel like it would just be sort of like my duty, I guess, to kind of give back to them in as many ways as possible. So whether you're from Indonesia or Tokyo, like you can come to LA and just have like a place to shoot for free and just have fun.
That's amazing, because studios as well are so expensive to work in, and especially when you're starting out, it's just a cost that is almost impossible. That's why I never did more studio work, because I could just never afford like paying, I don't know, $200 for like half a day of studio time, because it was just ridiculous.
Yeah.
I mean, $200 was sometimes what I made in a full day of shooting when I was beginning. So it was just like, it was just not. So Irene is asking, what is your zodiac sign, Mark? Is it a water sign?
My zodiac sign. I don't know. Like, what is the zodiac sign?
What is your date of, or like what day and month were you born?
Oh, so my birthday's on August 10th. I don't know. What is that?
10th. I don't know.
Let me look that up, actually.
Irene, look it up. Somebody look it up.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't think it's Leo. No, it's not Leo. Virgo? Is it? I don't
And
even know.
actually, it might be Leo. I feel like someone told me it was Leo once.
August 10, zodiac. I should know that. I actually signed myself up for a zodiac thing, but I just you are a Leo. Wow, you're another fire sign.
So what does that mean? What does that mean?
You're very well, it's like in general, I think like Leos tend to be a bit ego driven, but not all of them, just some. But it's just in general they're like natural leaders, like very confident, like very they love attention. It's kind of similar to Aries as well in a lot of ways. Okay,
Hmm.
never mind. We'll lose all the like people following us if we start talking about zodiacs. Okay, so we have a good question here. So Mustafa asks, "What will you do if your model tries to lead the session?"
Well, in a way, I feel like they need to almost lead in a certain way because
But what if they're like walking over you, or what if they're trying to be like a bit too pushy?
yeah, that one's a tough one. I feel like every situation's different, and I probably would handle it like I would try to be as nice as possible and really try and like communicate with them and get them back on like what I feel like the right idea is or whatever it happens to be. But I think my number one goal is to never like get in an argument with the model, especially when they have like an ego already, because then it just turns into this like nasty social media fight, and then they have this like exposed video. Oh my god, like I had a terrible time working with Marc or whatever it might be. So like
Mhm.
I guess my goal, like if like a model was trying to like over lead the shoot, my goal would just to be to try and like actually like talk to them about it and be like, yo, like this is the way that I think we should go, because this and this. But I don't think that's never really happened to me before, just because usually I have a very like clear vision that I send to them before we even meet up. So they're very like aware of what's going to happen and like what clothes they'll be wearing. So I don't think that would happen, but knock on wood, it probably would one day. But I think I would just try and remain calm and make sure that I don't, offend anybody or like say anything hurtful or mean. Just be like as nice as possible and just remind them that like we're both here for the same reason. So.
That's the thing, and I think in general, you can have those situations, not just models. I find a lot of the time it's actually never models. It's usually like a lot of the time I find having problems with like makeup artists or hairstylists because
Mhm.
they come to a shoot with a very strong idea and they're like, I'm going to do this, and that. And actually, especially at the beginning when I was starting out, I had a few like makeup artists and like hairstylists that would like try and direct the model in terms of like posing and stuff.
Oh, really?
And yeah, and I think because especially at the beginning, I was super shy. I wouldn't like direct models a lot, and I wouldn't be like speaking that much because I was like so in my shell. They would just walk over me, and it's just like now, obviously, it's a bit different. Like I've had the situation on set, I'll be like, hey, as you said, this is what it is. This is the project we're following. Maybe it's. I think it's just as you said, being as nice and as polite as possible.
Mhm.
And I think if that doesn't work, as you said, I think it's just better to just sometimes let it go, let them be the way they are, and just never work with them again after that, because sometimes it's just not worth having beef with somebody afterwards. I've had
Right.
situations where I work with somebody and like after one time I was like, I'm never working with you again. And it's
Yeah.
fine. It's just that's it. You just part your ways and that's it.
Right. Yeah. I think, yeah, that's a good way to go about it. Cause then once you have like this negative energy, you just never feel good. Like cause you never know like who they're friends with, or if they like say something bad about you to somebody else. And,
Yeah.
so it's just always good to just try and leave a good name for yourself.
Yeah. And then Candy said, I found a model with a huge following was super nice. And then a model with only a few hundred followers was so rude. And the makeup artist walked off set. I ended the shoot. She was so rude. Do you know what? It's like there's no golden rule. I had a model once. It was actually in London as well. And she was a pretty, I don't know if she had a big following. She was doing quite a lot of jobs. And I think it's just like she was overbooked and tired that day, but she was just an absolute nightmare to work with. She would like fall asleep in the makeup chair. She like as soon as the makeup artist finished like the thing, she would like put a freaking hat on her face. And it was such a
Weird.
stressful situation. Yeah. And like I took photos for like literally 10 minutes. I was like, listen, this is not working. But then, the agency was like, hey, and she was bitching about the agency. She was just so bad. And I said that to the agency afterwards. I was like, listen, she did this, she said that about you guys, by the way, maybe you should have a chat with her because that's the way she was talking about you behind your back. And then they were asking me for the photos, and I'm like, listen, I don't have anything to show you because it was just a horrible shoot. And they literally blacklisted me, and I cannot work with them since then because they just don't want to work with me.
Oh my
But
goodness.
it's just like I stand by my, she was just a horrible model. Like she was
Yeah.
just a horrible person, and I don't know. Like I don't say she was a horrible person. Maybe she just had a really off day, but just the whole team was so crushed after the shoot that it's just But yeah, there's sometimes girls who have a few hundred followers or they don't have a following at all, but they just have a big ego, and it's just like there is no rule to it. It's just I think in general you just have to try and be a nice person.
Right.
If you're a bad person, then that's what it is. Candy also said I started shooting more male models thanks to the likes of Marc inspiring me.
Oh, that's awesome. I love hearing that. I love when people tell me that they are going to shoot with more male models because of like my videos. It's just so cool to hear. So it makes me feel like I'm actually doing something like good.
You are. Oh my God. What do you mean it makes you feel like, of course you are. Yeah. So Sir Gray said, what is your most memorable photo shoot?
Oh, that's a good question. I've had a lot of good ones. I don't know. It's hard to choose. Huh. I think one of the ones that will always stick with me is I did this shoot with my friend Brian, and I remember like we spent like him and I are like close friends. So we hang out like pretty often without photography even being involved. But he's also a model, and I think one of my favorite shoots was probably the one that I did with him back when I was living in Boston, because we had spent like 5 hours just like strolling through the city, just talking about like life and in the modeling industry and just like, about all these crazy things. And then at the end we were like, hey, do you like want to do a photo shoot, or like, should we take some pictures? And we did. And then all of a sudden, like, we just found this like creative flow where we were just like going and going. And it was so weird. Like, it was so bizarre how it happened, because we weren't planning to take these photos at all. We had just planned to hang out and just spend the day in Boston. But it just turned into this like whole cinematic like style shoot that is probably one of my favorites, just because of just the uniqueness of the whole situation. I actually have a video. I did a vlog on my YouTube channel, actually. It was like I think a year ago or like a year and a half ago.
Let me try and see if I can find it, because I have your YouTube channel here.
Okay.
What do we look for?
I think it was called like creating cinematic photos, I think. Something with the word cinematic. I know that's for
creating cinematic portraits on location, creating cinematic
Oh, that
portraits.
one. The vlog 01.
Oh wait, shit. Sorry.
Okay.
Behind which one?
It says vlog 01 and then classic cinematic inspired shoot with male model. You just passed it right there.
Oh, sorry. Here. That's right.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah, it was fun. We just like got to hang out. He had like a casting earlier in the day too, so I got to like go to one of his castings. So that was cool. Oh my God, that was like me a couple years ago. I look so bad.
You're like, that's great.
But yeah, that was probably one of my favorite photo shoots ever.
Oh,
sorry, my like laptop is just glitching out, right? Like, it's hard to find a place for it to just balance with it being charged. So, oops. Okay. Oh, did we lose Anita?
sorry, guys.
Oh, okay, never mind.
We lost ourselves. I'm not sure what happened. It might have been on my end. I think in general, I find usually my favorite photo shoots are usually the most random ones, the ones that are least planned, but it has a really good vibe. Like, I really click with the model, because I find the more I click with the model, the more comfortable I am around them, and the more comfortable I am, the more I am willing to push myself, because I don't feel like I'm going to be judged as well. I don't know if it's the same with you.
Yeah, that's a good point. I feel like, wait, can you hear me better?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so my favorite part about just being a photographer in general is being able to form these friendships with the models in the first place, because I feel like if it wasn't for me being a photographer, I would never meet these people like ever in my life. So it's crazy to think about how I've been able to form these amazing friendships with people just because I have a camera. So I just feel like there's this special bond between a photographer and a model that only we can understand, because we both understand, like, I guess, what it feels like to be vulnerable in a certain like moment. And also what I've noticed too, I don't know if this is just because like I'm a sensitive person, but I tend to find that like models are more sensitive around me than when they're hanging out with like their other friends. Like because I've been a part of shoots where like there's like a group of 5 models, and the way that they act around the other models is like completely different than when they act around me, because I feel like they try to be like this alpha male figure when they're with a group of guys, but then when it's just
Yeah.
like me and them, they know that I'm like not challenging them in any way. I'm just
Yes.
there to like help them like express themselves. So that's one of the best parts about being a photographer, is that like I'm not there to challenge anybody. I'm just there to enjoy the time with them. So it's fun.
Yeah, no, that's true. That's very good because, as you said, I think you're right. It's like I know it's kind of hard because I'm sure you're the same as well. You get the energy of the model as well. So if the model's acting a certain way, you will react, like you will automatically react to it whether you want it or not. So it's definitely down to how you are in terms of your character and how you come across as well.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. So let's see. What is Irene saying? Just want to let you know, guys, that I'm really enjoying this life. Yay!
Awesome.
The
Thank
Queen
you.
of Boca is enjoying our life. That's a blessing in
This is like
itself.
my first time doing a YouTube live, actually.
It's great. You're doing great.
I'm like such a
Seriously, when
nerd.
I was doing it the first time, it's just like I was like when I was doing my first lives, I was like, oh my god, what do I say? What do I do? It's just like blah. And now it's just like, it's just like hanging out, and it's just there's lots of people
Yeah.
watching you hang
And
out,
I
so
always
it's
felt
fun.
like I don't know, this is a weird thing that I feel, but like um whenever I will like work with other YouTubers, I never feel like I'm providing any value. Like I always feel like you guys are always the one like as this big figure, and I'm just like the little brother over here just like trying to like get a voice in. So it's like really nice to be able to even like chat with people like you and Irene. It was like so fun getting to meet you guys. I remember okay, so I don't think I told you this, but like before I did that shoot with you and Irene, I watched your channel for like a very long time, and like I knew who you were, and I was like always wanting to work with you too, but I was like, oh, she's like always in different countries, so I'll never be able to work with
Yeah.
her. So it was actually really cool when Irene was like, hey, is it okay if Anita comes? I was like, yeah, that's totally fine. Bring
You're
her.
like, no, get her out. I don't want her here.
Yeah. But
Leave.
no, like I was like a big fan of you as well.
Thank you. That's the thing, is just like, a lot of the times I just like I might just not, because it's funny, but I don't really watch a lot of photography channels, which is
I'm the
pretty
same way.
interesting.
I'm the same way.
Yeah, so it's just like, to be perfectly honest, I just don't know about a lot of people because all my recommendations are like fitness YouTubers that like do booty squats. It's just like that's literally all my recommendations. It's like random beauty vlogs, and just like, so a lot of the time when there's new photographers popping up, I don't even see. But then like Irene is always on everybody's videos, and she always like watches everyone. So whenever she posts about somebody, I'm like, oh, there's a new person coming up.
Yeah.
And I think it's great because I feel like the great thing about YouTube is that we can really create a community around each other. And it's not just, I feel like, when you're working in an industry, like, for example, LA or London, like, everybody's kind of like, nobody really wants to be friends because they think that you're out to get them, you're out to get their job, you're out to get their clients. But it's just
Right.
like, it's not like that. You don't have to be enemies. It's like, I've had photographers like that in Ireland as well, where they were so protective over what they are doing, and they're so protective over like their clients. And I'm like, it doesn't matter. Your client books you for you, not because they'll see me and they'll be like, oh yeah, oh my god, I want her instead. And it's just, if that happens, then it will happen anyway.
Yeah.
But it's just, I find like people need to be a bit more open and just be willing to create more of a community rather than just like being everybody for themselves and just like not really allowing other people in and so on, because there is space for everyone. There is literally, it's the internet. It's the world wide web. We have space. There's loads of
Right.
space. So
Like I was gonna ask you actually really quick,
yeah.
like what are your thoughts when people like for me, for example, for me, I will sometimes ask other photographers like, hey, like where did you shoot this at? Like what location did you shoot at? Or like, hey, who was that model you worked with the other day? I would really like to work with them too. Like sometimes photographers, at least here in LA, they like won't tell you, or they like won't respond. They like, oh, like I did so much research on this location, like you got to just find it for yourself. Like, what are your thoughts on that? I don't know. Because whenever people ask me, I've always been very open. I'm like, yeah, here's their Instagram. Like, here's all their contact. This is a
Yeah.
location shot at. But in some ways, I can understand why people are protective over, the things that they've created,
Yeah.
and like the locations they've created at. But at the same time, I feel like it would be, I don't know, maybe like more helpful if they actually, tried to tell you
Mhm.
and
I
just,
think I
right?
think in general, I think it's kind of like when it comes to like people I work with, I would never like try and hide whoever like I worked with. I mean,
Right.
I'd always tag like it's the same with like retouchers and like even like regardless if I work with someone for credit or if I like pay them, I still tag them, because like I know a lot of people that like would pay retouchers, they would not tag them in the photo, but I'm like, why wouldn't you? Like they still contributed to that work, and at the end of the day is their work as well. And when it comes to locations, like I always like tag my locations because I just don't
Mhm.
see how is that an issue. Like, I mean, if I shot there already, it's not like I really care. I do have to say I sometimes don't reply to people when they ask me about locations because when you run a YouTube channel, when you post or when you shoot in all those places, like I probably have at least 5 people a day asking me about like several different locations, and it's just a lot of the time I don't even remember where it was. Like I
Mhm.
always post them in like description anyway. I'm like, this is where I shot it. This is the location. So it's just like I feel like if people are lazy enough that they can't just look into the description, and they come to me and they're like, hey, where did you do this? I'm like, you know what? Just do your own freaking research because it's like sometimes it just comes from a place where I'm just fed up and I'm just tired and I just don't have time to respond to every single person being like, hey, where is this beach that you shot at? Where is this thing? Where is that? Because a lot of people are in a way very opportunistic where it's just like they will literally not do any of their own research and just be like, hey, can you just give me like I love vague questions like, hey, where are good spots to shoot in Bali? I'm like, what are you looking for? It's like I'm
Right.
not in this because it's like when you have a 30th question that is the same, you literally feel like you're just putting a PDF together and just like sending it to them. But at the same time, it's just kind of like you just kind of have to find, or I just find that sometimes I'm just like I just don't even bother replying because it's just like it just gets on my nerves when it's like a 30th person asking me the same thing. So I
Yeah,
guess
that
maybe
makes sense.
that's
That makes
but other than that, I'm always very open and like I would never like intentionally like hide something from people. Like as I said, unless I'm like tired and just like just whatever. But I don't think it's like it's like a secret thing where it's just like, oh my god, no, I will not tell you this piece of the woods where I was because I don't want it to be there. I had like I had a few because I had an experience where a lot of the time like I would talk to a photographer and like I would I sometimes message my friends. I'm like, hey, where is this beach because I really love it, and a lot of the time they will tell me. I know there's certain photographers that I have better connection with. They will definitely tell me, but then there's some people that, funny enough, I actually had a situation where I was chatting to a photographer friend, and I was like, hey, like I'm going into this location, you're from there, any chance you could maybe possibly give me an email of an agent that you work, like a model agent that you work with and so on. And they were like, oh, sorry, I have no connections. And I'm like, okay,
Oh.
fine,
Right.
that's fine, because I would never, like, if you ask me, you're like, oh, I'm coming to London, like, can I, like, do you know this agency? I'd be like, yeah, sure, like this is the agents list, whatever. But
Right.
people are like that, and it's just like, it's just like whatever works for people. Some people want to share, some people don't want to share, and I think it's just
Mhm.
down to
Yeah.
what people are like. So okay, so wait, because we're drowning in comments. Okay, so Justin is saying, but I think just be accommodating, casually smoother things out, never be in direct conflict. Okay, we're like way behind. Sorry, guys. Um, how did your okay? So this one, how did you first find jobs like agency jobs when you were starting out?
So at first I didn't understand that whole world of like the agencies. I didn't understand any of that stuff. And
Mhm.
I found it hard to like find that information online. So for me, I just reached out to people directly through Instagram. So that was sort of how I got I guess like my little break with an agency, because back when I was shooting in Boston, there weren't that many agencies in general. So whenever I worked with one model, it was like, and then he posted the photo that you took of him. It's like all the other models just sort of like
Mhm.
swarm your
Yeah.
DMs, and they're just like, work with me, work with me. So it was like very exciting at first because I was able to work with models without even having to worry about the agency stuff. But then I realized that agencies, they don't like when you work with a model without getting like their approval.
Yeah.
Because I don't really quite know why that is even to this day, but I think that they just like to know what's going on, and like they like to understand what their models are doing or like what projects they're working on. Because if it if it is a paid project, obviously they want a percentage of it. But
I,
for a lot of the
if sorry, if you don't mind me jumping in, I think the reason why the agencies don't want them working, because first thing first, they're on a contract, so they're legally not allowed to do that really,
oh,
unless it's a
okay,
different contract. And second of all, yes, it's definitely about money. They want to make sure that whatever jobs come through, everything comes through the agency, so it's transparent whenever the model is getting paid or not. Because
right,
a lot of the time, you could be like, oh, I'm just going to do a little job at the side and cut the agency out, and they obviously want to avoid it, so that's why they never let you shoot with a male model without their approval, because they want to know if he's getting paid or not. So,
okay, that makes so much
yeah.
sense. Yeah. So yeah, that's probably maybe that's something that if you're trying to if you're trying to form a relationship with an agency, maybe start off by emailing them. You can find their email on their website, and a lot of the times too is like you just have to figure these things out by yourself, and you just kind of have to go through it, and that's really the only way you'll learn.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it was for me. Like I didn't have anybody helping me or guiding me with the whole process. I just sort of like went with it and just learned as I went on. And I mean, even to this day, like I'm still learning something every day. Like I don't know
Yeah.
as much as people think that I do.
Mhm.
So that's something, to consider.
Yeah.
Like if you do want to find, I guess, like a first job with the agency, start trying to form a relationship with them. And by doing that, you'll have to like send them an email, maybe offer to like go in their actual like building and just like meet them. That's what I did when I first moved to LA. I just emailed like a bunch of different agencies and I got like 2 responses. And then I went in to actually meet up with one of them. And then that's kind of how I started
Yeah.
my network here in LA.
So someone is actually asking as well, how do you charge money for your photo shoots?
So I
So
just charge by pricing packages really. And once you like form the relationship with the agency, it just becomes like very like known like what your prices are. They know what they're paying for. It's like very consistent. Like it doesn't really change unless like you decide to change your prices. So for me, like the way that I charge is just it's either by looks or by time. So it just depends.
Mhm.
Sometimes I'll charge, I mean, I won't get into the specifics, but I'll
Yeah.
charge like a certain amount of money for shooting 2 outfits for 2 looks, right? And
Mhm.
then sometimes it'll include like a hair and makeup artist. Sometimes it won't. It just depends on whatever your budget is,
Mhm.
and whatever like the agency wants to pay. And also, like I just thought about this right now. Another tip that I would give to somebody who's trying to be like a fashion photographer is as soon as you can, start trying to work with like a team of people, because I find that agencies will take you a lot more seriously as a photographer
Yeah.
if you have like a hair and makeup artist that you regularly
Mhm.
work with, rather than you just being solo by yourself trying to do all of it. Because like at least for me, like I love to style my shoots, but there are times where you have to like let go of some of that control and work with the team. And then that's really what helps you build more relationships. And that's how agencies will, take you more seriously. So, I mean, it's already hard enough when you're 21 to like be taken seriously, because a lot of people
Mhm.
just, they see you and they're like, whoa, like you're not what I expected at all,
Yeah.
because my profile picture is like, you can't really see what I look like.
Mhm.
So when
Yeah.
people like first meet me, they're just always surprised because like they thought that I was like, I guess, a little bit older. So it's really just about how you hold yourself and how you just carry conversations with the agency. Just make sure that you're always staying professional, like make sure you're always on time, you're consistent. And I think that's the best way to just have a relationship with an agency in the first place.
Yeah, absolutely. Quick question while you're at it. Do you have to have hair and makeup shoots for, or sorry, do you have to have hair and makeup for male models?
Sometimes, yes, it depends. Like if it's just a test shoot in my studio, no, they just come with their hair already done.
Mhm.
And when it comes to makeup, like men, at
This is
least,
more like grooming. I think that's what it's called,
yeah.
right?
And especially like with test shoots, usually the makeup isn't as important. So
Yeah.
agencies aren't going to really need that additional cost involved. But I have been a part of like bigger shoots where it's like a campaign shoot where there are hair and makeup artists. So it just
Mhm.
depends on the project and like the size, and who all is involved. So
Ahmed commented, first time ever bothering with a YouTube live. You guys are awesome. Oh, thank you.
Oh, thanks.
So we have Alana asking, when you decided on your editing style, did you have that aha moment photo? How did you know that you had your look?
So that's funny. Sorry. I like choked on something. So people just assume that I like have an editing style figured out, but I really don't. Like, I don't feel like I have something like figured out for myself. What I tend to do like in Photoshop is I tend to just do the same steps over and over again,
Mhm.
but like tweak them all differently, just in like
Mhm.
little increments. So
Yeah.
it's not like I'm using like a like a Lightroom preset. It's more about just having a consistent workflow, but then like allowing myself to have the freedom to change it
Yeah.
depending on the situation or like depending on the color of the photo. So
Mhm.
I don't necessarily know that I don't like, at least for myself, I don't feel like I have an editing style, but I think what people should focus more on when it comes to like a style of photography is there's more ways to have a style than just editing. Like editing is one way to have a style for sure.
Yeah.
Like you see photographers like Brandon Wolfel, right? Like he has that amazing style of like this very vibrant watercolor edit, right?
Mhm.
But then there's also another way you can have your own style is by having like a consistent theme with the way that you style your shoots. Maybe you have like a consistent way that you light your portraits. So there are other ways to like have I guess, a style besides just editing.
Yeah.
But yeah, so for me, I don't really feel like I've ever had that like aha moment with editing. I feel like I've just been really consistent with doing the same thing over and
Mhm.
over again, but then, slowly at a time trying out new styles of
Yeah.
editing or like new methods.
I feel like it's interesting because from my perspective, I feel like I started feeling like I have a style when people would be like commenting on my stuff, being like, "Oh, I saw this photo and I knew it was you." And I was like, oh, "Okay." So people started recognizing what I was doing, and I started developing more and more of a taste for like a certain color palette, and like especially when it comes to skin, because
Mm,
obviously I have a very specific like skin coloring. For me, it was definitely not editing per se; it was color grading. And I've spoken about it many times, and it was just, but I think it's so important in my photos because I feel like if I didn't color grade them the way I did, obviously, as you said, shooting is so important, like the way you angle your stuff, the way, the lenses you use, the focal lens you use, the f-stops you use, because if you shoot, if I, for example, started shooting a 1.2 now, people will be like, what is this? This is not your work.
right.
Even though it is, but it's a bit different. So that's the thing where the style comes in. You have you have a consistent workflow, as you said. So you have consistent lenses that you use, consistent locations or just looks, certain models that you pick as well, because you do tend to go for a certain type of model, as we were kind of talking much earlier in this live. So there's lots of elements that go into creating your own style, but I feel
Right.
like I don't think it's ever like this, like, oh my god, I have a style now. But it is something that slowly kind of starts sticking to you a bit more and more until
Mhm.
eventually you just can't shake it. You're just like, okay, I'm stuck with this. So
Yeah, yeah, you're just like, all right, let's go.
um what is your advice for introverts, for introverted photographers? For me, I've been like the biggest introvert, and for me, the biggest thing was YouTube. Just putting myself in front of the camera, it put me out of my shell so much. Just having to speak to the camera and having to say out loud what I was doing. And I remember, like at the beginning when I was doing the videos, and I had like teams of people, like hair, makeup, and stuff, and just having to record in the studio or outdoors and just like saying everything that was happening, it was mortifying. Oh my god, just having to talk through my process and be like, "Hello, everybody, welcome back to my channel," and they're like, everybody's just like standing there, and they're like,
Mhm.
and you're like,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
it was definitely a process, but I feel like the more you do it, the more comfortable you get. And now, because of my YouTube, I just have no problems on set anymore. Like, I can direct models, I can do stuff. I'm so much like, I'm almost like outgoing. I'm like the life of the party, which is so random because I've never been like that. But I think that's what it is for me, plus experience, obviously, because like being on sets for so long and like working with like more and more people obviously helps as well.
Right.
How about you?
I guess I mean, I'm looking for advice. So if any of you have any, that'd be great. I guess my advice for like introverts, I would consider myself an introvert for sure.
Mhm.
But I think for me, like whenever I work with a model or whenever I'm doing photography in general or like working with a team,
Mhm.
I never let that like introvert side of me come out because I just have so much fun that it's hard like not to talk. Like
Yeah.
I do want to
Hmm.
talk and I do want to say like what
Yeah.
I'm thinking because I just enjoy what I do so much. So I guess if you're like an introvert, just understand that whenever you're doing a photo shoot, you're probably like going to be an extrovert. So it's okay to be both. Like you can be both for sure.
Hmm. So Paul said the landscape photography YouTube community is really collaborative. It would be great to see that in other genres too. I agree. I would love for like more photographers too. But to be honest, I just find personally, like even for myself, even though my account is like slightly bigger, it's like it's still hard to connect with a lot of people there, especially like higher up in the photography realm
Yeah.
on YouTube because they're not particularly like that into connecting with you unless you're on similar level to them, and it is difficult, but
Yeah,
that's
I've
just
reached
the way
out to a
it is.
few. I've reached out to a few
Yeah.
other bigger channels, but I'm sure that they get so many DMs anyways, and they
I'm
for
sure
me
that's
like
yeah.
for me they
Yeah.
probably don't know who I am, so they're like nah, like I'm not gonna work with this kid.
They're like, see ya. So Barbara said, I found Mark's work because of this and I'm obsessed. It's so good. I spent over an hour just going through his Instagram yesterday. Thank you. I just know he's gonna be a huge inspiration to me.
Oh my god!
Yay!
Well, thanks Anita for even like shouting me out and having me here. So
No, of course. So Justin said, I have encountered photographers being very protective of the models they worked with, which I find really ridiculous. How do you do that when you then tag them in the work anywhere, or did you just like not tag them and you just like? I know people do that, but it's so dumb.
yeah, they're
I'm
like,
sorry, but it's
oh, or they're just very like short with you, like short answers when you ask about the models. They just
you're like, no, go away.
yeah.
Um, Hi, Mark. Love all your work.
Oh,
Wow.
thank you so much.
Um, how do you feel about agencies or models editing your photos upon using them?
Oh my god, I wish they wouldn't do
Love
that,
it. We
but
love it. We absolutely love it. There's nothing better than a
yeah,
model
they
slapping a filter.
yeah, yeah. That's the one thing I will always try and like tell models. I'm like, hey, like, it's not included in the contract or anything, so like they don't technically have to listen to me. But I do tell them, I'm like, whenever I send you the photo edits, like, try and keep them the way that they come, just because that's sort of how I, as a photographer, like market myself is based off of my editing. So I like to try and keep it consistent. So if you could, avoid putting filters on it, that would be very much appreciated. And most of them, they understand. They're like, oh yeah, like I get it for sure. But you'll always have those people who like, or what also like kind of frustrates me too is when they like crop your photo at like a weird crop. And it's like, why did you crop off your legs? Like it made the whole photo so much better. Like you just cropped like right at your
Yeah.
belly button. So
I would just rather have a model ask me to change something because like there's sometimes where, especially with some models, I find especially with girls that have a following, like a lot of them want to be maybe like liquefied a certain way, and they
mm,
don't necessarily want to come up to you and be like, hey, can you please liquefy me? Can you make me look skinnier? Because it's obviously frowned upon.
right.
And at the end of the day, I would rather her have, yeah, like when I send them photos, I'm usually like, hey, listen, if there's anything you'd like to change, anything at all, just let me know. I'll be happy to do it for you. And it's just, I would way rather handle the liquefy rather than the girl just going in fucking Facetune and just like,
Yeah.
like getting like all the frames just like,
Yeah.
bending in and just
Mhm.
like, oh, it's just. Although I have to say, some girls do a really good job with liquefy. You would just like never know. Because
Yeah.
some I had some models just like retouch my photos, and they were like, "Hey, can I just post this? I just changed it a tiny bit." And then you put one on top of the other, and you're like, "Oh, you sneaky! I see what you did here." But it's fine. Whatever makes them happy.
Yeah.
Paul commented, "You're an introvert, Anita. Well, there's a hope for me yet." Oh, you would like seriously go? Actually, don't go and look at my very first videos, please. But seriously, like even like one of my first like editing videos, I was just doing a voiceover, and like even the tone of my voice, I was just like, because I was terrified. I was absolutely terrified, shitting myself. Anyway, Ayana said, "Thanks for the advice. It's comforting and inspiring to hear your professional experience in the industry." You're welcome. I think we'll be wrapping up soon because we're coming to an hour and a half. This is my longest live
Oh
I've
wow,
ever
that
done.
went by fast.
I know. So Kevin said, just browse through your IG and bro, you're incredible. I'm definitely inspired by your work. Needless to say, I'm a fan now. LOL. Following
Aw,
now.
thank you so much.
Yay!
Appreciate that. Thanks,
Maybe you guys
Kevin.
get to maybe you guys get to connect and do the shoot that
Oh
Kevin
yeah, yeah.
wants to do. So if you guys have any last questions, please let me know. We'll be here for another 2 minutes. I'm just trying to see if I had any more questions for you while we're at it.
Yeah.
And oh yeah, so one last thing that I wanted to ask is, do you find there's a lot of differences between shooting with female and male models? Because you obviously do both. Is there like a different way you approach both? Is there a different way you like is there a different mood on the shoot, and even the way you pose them and so on? Because it is obviously slightly different.
Yeah, for me, honestly, I feel like there's not too much I change when I work with either or. Like, I think
Mm-hmm.
my process pretty much stays the same. Like, I'll communicate with them days before the shoot. We'll go
Mm-hmm.
over like a mood board or like a plan or, an idea. And then whenever we are actually shooting, honestly, I don't feel like it's, for me at least, I don't feel like it's that different than when I work with like a guy or a girl. I actually feel like it's very similar in certain ways. But again, with the whole, with the way that people view the more traditional side of male modeling, they don't see, I guess, guys posing in a more
Mm-hmm.
feminine way. They feel like that's like wrong or like that's not right. But for
Mm-hmm.
me, like sometimes I will pose guys in a little bit more of like a feminine way. So and I think that feminine side of me probably comes from working with a bunch of female models when I first started.
Mm-hmm.
So I do tend to like steal posing ideas from like the female models and then try and give them
Yeah.
to the guys and then just like tweak them a little bit. But it's not anything crazy. It's
Yeah.
not anything like too far out there. It's just like little things here and there. But
Yeah.
for me, I feel like it's the same overall. The only thing though that I do notice is when you work with female models, you have to be a little bit more like, how can I say, like you have to pay attention more to like the way that their clothes are flowing or like the way that their hair is done. If there's like, a piece in their face or
Mm-hmm.
something, like you have to pay more attention
Yeah.
to some of the flaws that may happen when you're working with like female fashion rather than with guys. Because with guys, it's
Yeah.
pretty simple. Like the clothing is pretty simple.
Yeah, that's
You
true.
know,
And
so
there's like, yeah, it's definitely easier to like even keep the hair a certain way and so on. But yeah, I agree. Okay, so sorry. So Sergey asked, what is your perfect go-to settings? F-stop, ISO, shutter speed. I feel like this kind of question is a bit tricky because there is no such a thing as a perfect go-to setting. Your perfect go-to setting is what the light dictates, depending on if you're shooting in full sun, if you're shooting in the studio, if you're shooting in, shade. There is certain f-stops like that I usually go for. I usually go for around maybe 4 to like 5.6. Sometimes I go 2.8.
mhm.
I keep my ISO at 100. Like that's the only thing that I would say from like the three. I always try and keep my ISO at like the lowest number possible. So I always change my f-stop first. I kind of decide what f-stop I want. So I'll go like maybe, as I said, 4.5, whatever. ISO will always stay at 100 if I can. And then at the end, I'll adjust the shutter speed, depending on what the light situation is. So if
Yeah.
it's super bright, I'm going to go high with shutter speed. If the light is, a bit lower, then I'll go lower. But there is no such a thing as perfect setting. It's not like I can just go to set and be like, okay, this is the settings that I'm going to use.
Yeah.
Unless you're in the studio. Like if you're working in the studio and you have the same light setup, then yes. But like if you're working with natural light, it's just not a realistic thing, I guess. Um, Justin says, enjoy the live chat, appreciate
Oh,
it,
thanks,
and said,
Justin.
hope to see you in person soonish again, Mark.
I know once LA's like back to being somewhat calm.
uh,
Yeah.
I literally cannot leave outside of 20-kilometer zone for like another 2 months in here.
Oh, that's awful.
It is.
I'm sorry.
I no, like I might be able to fly somewhere after like maybe like in a month or two, like back to Bali or like London, but who knows? At the moment I can't leave past 5 kilometers away from my house. So
Wow.
that's going to be for another like 3 weeks or something, and then maybe 20 kilometers, I think, or something like that. So fun times. Yay. Okay, guys, we're gonna wrap it up. We've been here for a while. Before we fall asleep. Oh, you won't fall asleep. I might. I won't. No, I'm talking shit now. Okay. Sorry. One last question. Would you feel if your model didn't upload your photo on Instagram? Do you ignore it or do you care?
Oh, that's a good question. I feel like I don't really care too much. usually some models have like a certain aesthetic that their agency wants them to keep. So I see some models who actually like never post their professional photos and they just post iPhone pictures. So
Yeah.
I guess it depends. Like some people have like their own aesthetic. So if my photo shoot doesn't like align with that, it's fine. But they'll usually tell me like they love the photos, like, they really enjoyed them. So as long as they're happy with them, that's what matters. So yeah, I
Yeah.
don't care too much.
Yeah. No, I agree. Okay, sorry, one last question because
Okay.
it's a good one. Hey guys, when shooting in natural light, do you usually start with your creative locations first and go to your safe locations, or do you usually start with your creative location first? I think I read it wrong, but we get the idea.
So when you're shooting,
Um, for me, I think it's down to where the light is, because when I'm shooting with natural light, it all depends where the light travels, because if the light gets high in the sky, or if I'm shooting with palm trees, places where you can see interesting backgrounds and so on, there might be like shadows that will be cast in a certain way. So I always gonna have to work with the light. I will probably start with the more creative locations first and try and get the creative shots out of the way. And then if I'm running out of time, I'll try and like shoot out the safer locations. So if I, let's say, shoot for a designer, I'll start with the creative things first and then just like try and smash out as much as possible towards the end. How
yeah.
about you?
Yeah, I think I would probably start with my creative location first, like or whatever location that I'm really looking forward to. I'll do that one first just to make sure that I get that done, and then I'll go to like the next location. So that way, if anything is to happen, well, at least we got like the best shots that we could. So.
Yes, I agree. Okay, guys, we are gonna wrap it up.
Yeah,
This time
these were
for sure.
great questions, by the way. Thanks for
Yeah,
asking.
they were amazing questions. It was a really, really solid life. I love that. Thank you
Yeah,
so much for everyone thank you so much for everyone who participated. I clearly can't speak anymore. Thank you so much, Mark, for spending an hour and a half with me here, just chatting. It was really great to have you on.
thanks for
I think
inviting me. This was so fun.
you're so welcome. It was great, and I think people. I think it's safe to say that people enjoyed it. I hope you guys have a good evening. Make sure to check out Mark. Everything is going to be in the description box down below. And yeah, thank you so much. Enjoy your Sunday wherever you are in the world, and I will chat to you soon.
Bye, guys.
Bye, guys.
Perfect.